of housekeeping matters that I want to talk about real quickly. First, this is general advice for people. This is not legal advice specific to your particular situation. If you do have questions at the end that you want to talk to me about, my contact information is going to be on the very last slide. And you can contact me by email or by phone, or we can set up a Zoom meeting and talk about your particular situation at that point. I will be answering questions at the end. Again, just generally answering questions at the end. So you don't lose track of questions as they occur to you. I would encourage you to use the chat function. I'm not going to be looking at those questions until the very end, but if you put them into the chat function, I will try to get to all of them before we have to wrap up the presentation. Finally, if you have a single screen and you have people's faces up there, if it's interfering with your view of the slides, which you should be able to share, you can go up to your view settings and you can select it so that you don't have the video. You can hide the video and see the slides. With that, we'll go ahead and get going here. The presentation shouldn't take too long. Again, I'm going to be hitting some high points and addressing some questions that people have been having. Also highlighting some questions that still exist and problems in the system that have not yet been resolved as of about 10 minutes before this presentation. So with that, let's get going. This benefit that you have available to you now is called the PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. It is different from what has been available to you in the past as independent contractors or self-employed individuals. Any of you who had or may have lost jobs in the past or moved on from a job in the past may have had the opportunity to participate in the regular unemployment compensation system, but people who were self-employed generally don't get anything. You don't pay into the system, so you don't get anything out of the system. Because of the quarantines and the shutdowns and the stay-at-home orders that we're dealing with right now, though, the federal government has stepped in and is funding these benefits for self-employed individuals and independent contractors to hopefully offset at least some, not going to be all, but some of the difficulties that everybody faces as a result of the various steps that have been taken to slow down the spread of the virus and also, unfortunately, slow down our economy. So you might be eligible for these benefits if you are self-employed, and we're going to talk about what that means in just a second. If you might be eligible if you're seeking part-time work, if you don't have a solid regular work history, or if you've exhausted unemployment benefits that were otherwise available to you. This program is, again, for people who are generally not eligible for state-level unemployment compensation, and it's only for times of emergencies. So, are you self-employed? This sometimes seems like a pretty intuitive thing, but it's a lot more complicated than people think. It's not just a question of how the people that you're doing work for qualify you or classify you. It's not always about how you get paid. It doesn't matter whether or not you get benefits. What it comes down to is a question of control. So, are you free from control and direction over how you perform your services? Are your services the type that individuals customarily engage in independently of established trade, occupation, professions, or businesses? And there are other factors that need to be considered, like where do you perform these services? Are you going to somebody else's space? in order to do your work? Are you using tools and materials that they provide? Are you allowed to perform the same types of services that you're performing for them for other people as well? The more somebody controls what you do, where you do it, and how you do it, the more likely it is that you are going to be somebody's employee. If you've signed an agreement that says you're an independent contractor, but you really do work under somebody else's direction at somebody else's facility at the times that they tell you to be there, and you do the things that they tell you to do, it doesn't matter what the document says. You might not be an independent contractor. You might not be a freelance employee or worker. You might actually be an employee. Whether or not they withhold taxes for you, whether or not they provide you benefits, if you are in fact somebody's employee, if you believe that you are somebody's employee, you should submit an application for unemployment compensation through what we call the regular unemployment compensation system. That won't necessarily affect the amount of benefits that you receive, but it will affect who's responsible for them. And even if somebody has not been paying into the unemployment compensation system for you, if you are in fact their employee, then the state will come after them and force them to pay those benefits. If, though, after you go through that analysis that I just ran through, you believe that you are self-employed, then you should proceed with an application for PUA benefits, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance benefits. Now, will you be eligible? That's another question. So, are you self-employed is question one. Will you be eligible is question two. Part of that analysis is determining why you were no longer able to do your job, why you are quote unquote unemployed as a self-employed person. There are 10 reasons that they've identified. They're fairly broad, and the first several are pretty intuitive, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those. They're not going to apply to most of you. The first several deal with whether or not you or somebody in your family has been diagnosed with COVID-19, or if you're seeking a medical diagnosis for COVID-19. Another reason might be if you have a minor child and that child is out of school or out of daycare because the facility has closed because of COVID-19. Are you unable to work because of a quarantine or stay-at-home order related to COVID-19? That's going to cover most people in this Commonwealth, at least. Are you unable to work because you've been advised to self-isolate or quarantine? Were you scheduled to start a new job? And this is an interesting one, because if you had received a job offer before everything shut down, and as a result of that shutdown, you either haven't been able to go to the job, or the job has gotten in touch with you and said, hey, listen, because of the situation, we're not going to fill that position, we're rescinding the order, you would be eligible for these pandemic unemployment assistance benefits. Have you become the breadwinner or major supporter of a household because the head of household has died as a direct result of COVID-19? At this point in time, at least as of yesterday's briefing from Kathy Dahlkamper, I don't believe that that applied to anybody in Erie County, at least. Have you had to quit the job because of a diagnosis? And then again, number 10, just like number 5, is your place of work closed as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic? So that plays into the stay-at-home order, and really is just another way of looking at that. So if you have your own small business, if you're a business owner, if you're a sole proprietor, you may still qualify for these benefits. We haven't had a lot of guidance from the unemployment compensation folks about how they're going to characterize this. I know at least one person in Erie County who has a construction type business. who's applying for unemployment assistance because they can't do their work, even though they have employees, even though they are the owners of the business. They're applying. They were able to make it through the PUA application process. So while there's no clear guidance on how the Commonwealth is going to treat this, there's no reason for you not to apply, even if you do have a small business, even if you have employees. If the primary source of your income is from work that you do in your own business or on your own farm, then you should certainly go ahead and apply. Now, here's a trickier one, and this is something that I've run into in particular with regard to a client of mine. She has a job, a part-time job that she works about 20 hours a week, and she gets a W-2 for the work that she does there. She works remotely, but she also goes into an office sometimes, and she does her job there. That work has continued. She's continued to work remotely. She hasn't missed a beat. She continues to get a paycheck, but that's only about half of her income. The rest of her income comes from jobs that she does as a freelancer. And that work has dried up. There are meetings and presentations that she was supposed to be going to and doing stuff for that have been canceled as a result of the stay-at-home order. So we went in over the course of the weekend and tried to apply for this benefit for her. And we unfortunately ran into a pretty significant roadblock in that. When she applied for the benefits through the PUA portal, we got to the point after putting in her Social Security number and basic information and hit next. And when we hit next, it went to a screen that told her that she may be eligible for regular unemployment. And that's because she gets a W-2 from her one employer for whom she is still doing work. And the system is not set up to allow her to proceed past that. Now, again, we did that on Saturday. As soon as we realized what was happening, I emailed the folks at the Unemployment Compensation Bureau in Harrisburg. I also emailed Representative Pat Harkins and Senator Dan Laughlin because they were the only two local elected representatives at a state level who actually have email addresses on their websites, and I didn't want to spend the afternoon filling out online forms. Senator Laughlin got back to me on Monday morning and said that he was going to look into it. I also got emails back from the folks at in Harrisburg saying that they were looking into it. And if you go on the website now and look at the information for PUA assistance, they'll tell you that they have fixed it, but they have not. It is still a problem. And the trick is that if you apply for the PUA and they tell you that you should go back and apply for regular unemployment because you have a part-time job that you get a W-2 for, you have regular wages and withholdings for, if you go to file for what we would call regular unemployment, one of the first questions you're going to be asked after the intake information is, from what employer were you separated? You haven't been separated from your employer. You're still doing that job, right? If you're still doing that job and you're still getting a paycheck, then how do you proceed? You really can't. And there are reasons why you don't want to try to wing it. As we go forward, I'll explain that a little bit more towards the end about why you want to be careful about what benefits you apply for and what benefits you get. So this is what I got from the state. This is what they're telling us at this point in time. If you get the message that their records indicate, quote unquote, our records indicate you may be eligible for an unemployment insurance claim by going to ucpa.gov or by contacting us, you are not eligible to file an unemployment insurance claim on this system. That's the PUA system. They have told us that if you receive the message, please do not proceed with the PUA claim. Check back in a couple of days. That was what I received earlier on Monday. On Tuesday, when I checked back in, they said that they had fixed it. On Wednesday, when I checked back in, they said that they had fixed it. But when I went in and plugged in her information, again, her social security number, it came up with the same form. So you might still run into this problem if you have a regular job that you are still doing and you have lost money on your side gig, your independent contractor work. If you've never worked before, will you still qualify? Again, if you were scheduled to start employment but could not because of the shutdown, then yes, you should be able to. If your job offer was rescinded because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the shutdown, you should still be able to qualify for these benefits. If you become the breadwinner or major supporter, even if you haven't worked before, you should qualify for these benefits. What type of information are you going to need? We've had some email communication. Patrick shared one with me earlier today from somebody who had gone through the system and was being asked for information. It looks like they're going to be looking for your tax information if you filed for 2019. If not, they're going to be looking for your financial information from 2019. So that's the year that you're going to want to have stuff available. You might want to have your 2018 tax return available for you as well, depending on your record keeping and how strong it is for 2019. You might want to have copies of incorporation paperwork if you have formed a corporation, an LLC, or an S Corp for the work that you do independently. You are going to want to have copies of customer invoices, whether they've been paid or unpaid. And again, they're going to be looking for 2019 more than they're going to be looking for 2020. So that's probably the information that you should have on hand. Bank deposit receipts will be key. Any records of payments. Now, I know that there are more and more people that are using Venmo, PayPal, Pop Money, other types of online platforms, Apple Pay, Google Pay, things like that. Those records can be used and can be helpful to you as you try to reconstruct your financial history for the past year. Form 1099s. I don't know if any of you have work that you do for folks independently that are big enough that they issue you a 1099, typically under a certain dollar amount, they're not issued. But if you have a Form 1099 for 2019, that would be very helpful. Advertisements. And again, this is just kind of to demonstrate that you are you, that you exist. So do you have advertisements for your business? If you don't have a billboard out there, right? Not many people do, but if you don't have a billboard out there, but you advertise on social media, you have a Facebook page, things like that can be used as evidence that you do in fact exist and that you have this business going. Likewise, if you have a lease or mortgage for a business or studio space, I don't think that an apartment lease is going to do it. I don't think that a home mortgage is going to do it. But if you lease commercial space or studio space, you might want to have that handy as well. Any business licenses, permits, certificates of occupancy, health department certificates if you have a restaurant or catering business, things along those lines. Any documentation to show your financial activity over the course of the past year. Part of that is to demonstrate that you've been in business, right? And that you're not just somebody who said, oh, well, I can't work during the pandemic. I'm going to be an independent contractor who also can't work and apply for these types of benefits. The state's going to take a very cynical view and going to want to make sure that you can demonstrate that you were doing the things that you say you were doing before this all started. They also are going to ask you why you can't work. Again, we went through that list of the 10 reasons before. I think the one that is going to apply to most people here and now are going to be the ones regarding the shutdown, the stay-at-home orders from the Commonwealth. The amount of your benefit, a lot of people want to know what that is going to look like. So this can be tricky for folks who are independent contractors. I'll say this as politically correct as possible, but I know that there are a number of folks out there that rely very heavily on cash transactions as independent contractors. And I know that sometimes can lead to people inadvertently underreporting income when April 15th rolls around, whether it's the state, federal, or local level. That could come back to haunt you in a situation like this, because they're going to, again, be looking at your reported income if you've already filed your taxes. And if you haven't already filed your taxes, you're probably going to want to make sure that the information that you put in for this PUA assistance is pretty tightly coordinated with the amounts that you're going to put in when you do file for your taxes this year. Government agencies, especially government taxing agencies, do talk to one another. And part of the Unemployment Compensation Bureau is the Bureau of Unemployment Compensation Taxation. So it could be a situation where if you are perhaps over-reporting your income for 2019 for PUA assistance as compared to what you might be reporting for income tax purposes, that could come back as a problem, because if you get more benefits through PUA than you are entitled to based on other factors, the state can and will come back at you for what's called a fault overpayment. And if they do come back at you for a fault overpayment, it's not only going to be the amount of money that you were overpaid, they're also going to look to you for interest and penalties, and the penalties can be as high as 25%. So I do think it is advisable to make sure that the income you claim through PUA very closely matches the income that you're going to report when it comes time for taxes. Now, the amount of your benefit is going to be based on your previous reported income and the information that you put in here in the PUA application. The minimum PUA benefit in Pennsylvania is $195 a week. That's per the state's website. The maximum benefit is $572 a week. And again, that's going to be, they're going to take the information that you provide them, they're going to plug it into a formula, and that's going to come up with the amount of benefit that you receive. Your minimum should not be below $195 a week. Your maximum will not be above $572 a week. The $600 additional benefit that the federal government is funding for a period of 4 months will be added on top of whatever PUA benefit you qualify for. You do not have to make a separate application for that. If it is determined that you qualify for PUA assistance, then you're going to get that extra $600 for the time that it is available. And that goes for anybody who applies for regular unemployment as well. If they're determined to be eligible because of COVID-19 related shutdowns or the other factors that we've discussed, then they'll get that $600 a week automatically. There's no separate paperwork to fill out for that. When will the payments start? Well, that's a good question. There is no definite date when a determination is going to be made as to your eligibility. But the general rule is that the sooner you apply, the sooner your claim will be looked at and hopefully processed. I will tell you, though, that even the regular unemployment compensation system is running about a month behind at this point in time. And there's no reason for me to believe or to tell you that the PUA assistance is going to come through any faster than regular unemployment. It's going to be a while, and that's just an unfortunate fact. When approved, though, the payments will be made retroactive, and they'll be made retroactive back to the date that you ceased work, or January 27th, 2020, whichever is more recent. So if you ceased work as of February 18th, the date of the first shutdown order from Governor Wolf, then your payments will be made retroactive to that date. You'll get a lump sum for that, and then for the most recent week, and then after that, you'll just get the regular weekly benefits. The $600 a week is also going to be paid retroactively to the date that you ceased work, or April 4th, 2020. And the reason that the one will go back to January 27th and the other only goes back to April 4th is because April 4th is when the CARES Act was passed. So that's the date that they're going to be looking for that. Again, though, it will be retroactive. So if you are approved based on the date of your unemployment and the application, then you'll get that money. How long do the payments last? When will they end? The PUA benefits continue for 39 weeks. Presently, no PUA benefits will be paid for weeks of unemployment after December 31st, 2020. I say presently because we don't know what's going to happen in Congress over the next several months. It could be extended, but for right now, that will be through December 31st, 2020 at the latest. Same thing with regard to the extra $600 a week. That has a cutoff date as well. Those extra funds are only available for 4 months, so they won't be paid for weeks of unemployment after January 25th, 2020. Your payments are taxable. You can opt to have 10% withheld, and I would really strongly encourage you to do this. Nobody knows what things are going to look like going into next year, but just dealing with regular unemployment compensation claims over the past 29 plus years that I've been in practice, I have on more than a handful of occasions seen people who have run into problems because they've got unemployment compensation. It has come in, there was no withholdings, and then at the end of the tax year, when it's time to pay Uncle Sam, that money gets counted as income, and these folks haven't set anything aside for it. So they end up in a situation where now they are in arrears to the IRS, which is not a situation anybody wants to be in because they've got a lot bigger reach than folks realize, and they don't have any money to pay. So it becomes a problem. At the worst, you'll end up getting a refund, in April of 2021. But it's probably better to have a little bit less coming in right now instead of having to deal with an unexpected bill at the end of the tax year. Those are the highlights of this system, such as it is. Let me take a pop over here to chat and see if anybody has any questions. Looks like we've got a few in there. Okay. Dave, I hope you were able to get back on and get your audio.
Yes, thank you, Art. I'm back.
Okay, good. I just saw that one. Okay, so many have jobs with employers who pay into the system, but the job loss, and Laura, that's exactly the situation that I have been dealing with for my one client. And as I said, I have actually kudos to Dan Laughlin on at least this particular point. I emailed him on Saturday. He called me Monday morning. And all I can tell you is that the Commonwealth is aware of that issue. I've gotten in touch with a couple of our elected representatives. I've tried to address it with them and with their staffs. The folks at the Unemployment Comp Bureau have said that they're trying to address it, but they have not. And again, I just emailed them again last night and said, hey, look, I know that the guidance that you have up right now says that, well, if you're still getting this message, then you're getting it appropriately, but you're not getting it appropriately because the fact that you have a regular unemployment, that you have a regular job and you get a W-2 for those wages and that continues, doesn't mean that you shouldn't get compensated for the work that you're doing. You're losing money just like everybody else is losing money at this point in time. And these benefits are available or should be available to you. My client in particular is looking at about a 50% reduction in her income because of the way that her freelance work played out. And we're still fighting with the Commonwealth. All I can tell you is to continue to check back with them. I promise you that on my end, I'm going to continue to make a nuisance of myself until they hopefully get their act together and get that squared away. This is a situation for folks who work in a college or university setting as well. They're being told that they don't qualify because of that, even if they have side businesses or side jobs that they're now losing money on. So it should be something that is addressed. Okay, Lisa, with regard to the reasons for lack of employment, the business has not closed completely, but has furloughed 40% of their employees, including contractors such as yourself. Lisa, you should qualify. I don't know that you would qualify for the PUA benefits, though. I think that you probably want to submit a claim for unemployment through the regular unemployment comp system. Again, it won't affect your benefits. They'll take your wage information and they will use that to calculate what your weekly benefit will be, and you should get the $600 on top of that. But if you are out of work because your employer has laid you off, and your employer has laid you off because of a turn down in business due to the COVID-19 pandemic or the stay-at-home orders, then you absolutely should qualify for unemployment compensation.
Thank you, Art. What's going on is I actually receive a 1099 from this employer.
Okay.
I went through the whole application and it went through. It said I'm eligible for the minimum, which I disagree with, but whatever. I'll be happy to get anything at this point. But there's some issues with my application apparently, but it doesn't give me anywhere to go in and fix them or provide additional information or anything like that.
Okay. So you have you're really not furloughed if you're getting a 1099.
Right.
Right. So okay. So you went in through the PUA. You were able to get through. That's good. They're telling you that there's an issue now. Typically, if this were a quote unquote regular unemployment comp situation, somebody would reach out to you by telephone. And they would ask you questions, or they would reach out to you by email and they would ask you questions to address that. Or they would tell you to log in and address questions there. I think that is going to be an issue of people power. They've flagged your application and now they've got to go through and get somebody to actually address the issues, and they don't have the bodies that are in a position to do that right now. So you might be in a holding pattern. I would encourage you to continue to check back in with them, though. Don't let them forget that you're out there if there's a way for you to do that.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I one of the other things I will say, you say you disagree with the 195. I think that at this point in time, again, because of the lack of people power on these things, I think the state might be defaulting to the minimum
Okay.
for everybody who applies for PUA, and then they will go back and adjust afterwards. At least they certainly should. The formula that they are using is actually based on federal regulation. This is the first time that anybody's had to deal with this on a nationwide basis, but it's not the first time that anybody's had to deal with unemployment compensation in an emergency situation. And the federal regulations actually have a formula in place for how to calculate how much unemployment comp somebody might be due if they're unemployed and dealing with a situation like this. So they're hopefully going through and applying that formula to make sure that that everybody gets what they're entitled to. And in order to just get the ball rolling on things, they're saying, all right, well, you qualify, but we're just gonna put you in for the minimum at this point in time. Hopefully they'll come back and adjust that. Okay. Mary, with regard to being an independent contractor and partially working, yes, you should be able to. Again, you're going to want to probably have information available to show the decrease in your income. If you have information for 2019 that shows that you were working or you were doing your freelance work and you were making X, but you now have information to support showing in 2020 that you're only making Y, and you can show that that decrease is a result of the state shutdown orders or one of the other qualifying events, then you should be good. You'll have to go through the system and put in, but partial benefits are available. Thank you. My very loving wife just heard the scratchiness in my voice, so pardon me as I take a drink. I promise you, all is just water. There should be notification electronically, Donna, that you're qualified for PUA. Lisa, did they advise you electronically that you would qualified?
No, actually, the only correspondence I got at all was at the very end of the application, and it said, you're eligible, and I can go in. I've got a dashboard and all of these things, but I haven't even received so much as an email that said, thank you for applying or anything like that, which also has me a little concerned.
Okay, well, I mean, at least you have a dashboard and you have a way to check in.
Right.
That's good. I have a 22-year-old daughter who applied for regular unemployment. Her job was shut down as a result of this, and she hasn't even gotten her PIN for the regular system at this point in time. Fortunately, she's here, doesn't have to worry about costs or anything. But yeah, that's rough.
Mm-hmm.
So Barbara, you got the message saying you still need to file weekly. That's if they're telling you to file weekly, you should check in and you should put in your weekly filing. I know that that's not the case for everybody at this point in time, but if they're telling you that you should file weekly, you should at least jump on and do what you can to file in that regard. If you get messages saying that you can't get through, I would screenshot those and save them, because there might be a time down the road where it's necessary to have that information and show that you have been checking in and doing your weekly filings.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Patrick, good question. So Patrick's question is, moving forward, what type of financial information do I recommend for artists, creative types, as you keep track of the work that you do? different people are going to have a different view of this. My view of it is that you should keep records as accurately as possible, and you should maintain those for several years. Keep in mind that the government can come back and can take a second look at your taxes for up to 7 years after you file them. That being the case, I would recommend that you maintain your financial records for a period of up to at least 7 years. Even though the probability of any of you being audited is low, the possibility still exists. And if you do end up getting audited, you're going to want to have that information handy. It can also come in handy if something unexpected like this comes into place. I don't know if any of you have businesses that are large enough or regular enough that you have business interruption insurance, but that type of information would be necessary to prove a claim there as well, whether it's due to a pandemic or a fire or something along those lines. Though if you do have business interruption insurance and you're going to make a claim against it now, you should know that that's going to be another big area of litigation coming up as people are all of a sudden rediscovering the what we call the force majeure clause, the act of God clause, and whether or not that provides some type of benefit. In terms of filing as an entity with the Commonwealth, whether you're doing it as a 501c3 corporation, a nonprofit corporation, or if you're doing it on a for-profit basis as a C Corp, an S Corp, or an LLC, that's something that really does get into the personal situation that you are facing with and that you are dealing with. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. People have formed corporations to protect individual assets or to protect business assets, to limit liability. Some people do it because they think that it makes them look more organized and more professional. Those are all valid considerations, and whether it fits you or not is going to be a conversation that you should have individually with an attorney and maybe even an accountant to decide what's going to be the best business formation for you tax-wise or personally. You have to understand what your goals are and what you're going for. The last thing that you want to do, though, is to form a business and then not do anything with it. So if you form an LLC, say you go on LegalZoom, which I do not recommend because, yes, they'll give you the form, but they won't tell you what type of business is best for you. They're not going to sit down and talk to you. Whether you go through them or go through a law firm locally here, they're going to have you talk to an attorney. So you might as well be face-to-face with the people that are going to do the work for you. But let's say that you go on LegalZoom and you form an LLC. Congratulations, you have an LLC. Do you now know what to do with it? Are you going to keep track of the meetings? Let's say you form a business corporation and you decide to do an S corporation election. What does that even mean? Has anybody explained that to you? If you have a business, if you have a corporate structure in place, but you're not holding annual meetings and you're not keeping minutes and you don't have appropriate insurance, it can all be for naught. It can be something that you've spent money on and put time into, but when you need it to protect you, when you need it to actually function for you, if you haven't done all the things that you're supposed to do on an annual basis, then you might have lost the protection of that despite whatever you invested up front. So certainly there are benefits that come with being a business. It can help keep things straight in terms of your in terms of your record keeping, your taxation, and things like that. But it can also be just an exercise in paper pushing if you don't have the right advice and you've chosen something that really doesn't suit your particular circumstances. Now, doing incorporations is not something that I do personally. However, there are a number of people at my firm that do that type of transactional work. And if anybody has any particular questions, I tell you to just reach out to me and I'll make sure that you get in touch with the right people to give you the correct advice in moving forward. Okay, we've got one more here. Free Maliki. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I'm an artist, still doing some projects. Let's say I received a check in the next weeks. Does that mean I am ineligible to file for unemployment that following week or continue receiving unemployment altogether? This gets back into kind of the partial unemployment compensation question. If you get income, you will want to report that income in the week that you receive it. So if you put in an application and you qualify, you're eligible for PUA assistance or you're eligible for regular unemployment assistance, and you are filing now on a weekly basis, you'll want to make sure that when you do your weekly filing, you put that income in for that particular week. Depending on the amount of income that you receive, it may reduce the benefit that you get, it may take out the benefit that you get, but it should not eliminate you from getting the benefit moving forward, okay? If it's just something that you did a job and you got paid for a job, and this is not now regular employment where you're getting paid week after week, you should still be able to do your weekly filings and get at least a partial benefit for that week, or continue your benefit the following week. Make sure you keep up with those weekly filings. Okay. Any last questions?
Hey, this is Freddie. Thank you so much for your answer.
No problem. No problem. My pleasure.
And I really appreciate your time to spending with us. And also, I have another question, Art, if I can.
Sure.
I'm right now in the application process. I'm exactly in the certification part, I think, which is the third part for the application. And it says, for example, if I say to being able to work every day and I accept an offer job, does it mean that if some other jobs, for example, opens, let's say McDonald's, just an example, I have to go to work there, or
no?
I misunderstanding this.
No. So when we go through the regular unemployment application process, one of the things that they require people to do is to go through and do a job search. Okay. But if there's a suitable job that is available for you and you don't take that job, then you can have your unemployment compensation, regular unemployment compensation, reduced or shut off at that point in time. But the system that they have set up for regular unemployment compensation is a lot different than what we're talking about here. And no, you do not have to go work for McDonald's. If you were working for McDonald's, right, and you got laid off for COVID-19 reasons, and now McDonald's is now hiring again, might you have to go back to that job? Yeah, because that was a job that you had before, and it's obviously a reasonably suitable job for you based on your past history. But if this is a situation where you're doing your freelance stuff and a job opens up at McDonald's, no, you don't have to go and work for McDonald's. That's not what that is intended for. And again, right now, for even folks in regular unemployment, the Commonwealth is not making them go through the job search because very few places are hiring. And the places that are hiring are not necessarily in an equivalent to what the folks were working in beforehand. So if you were the chief financial officer for a company and you get laid off, you don't have to go and work in fast food. If you are an artist and the work that you were doing is now dried up because of the shutdown, you don't have to go and work at McDonald's in order to get the benefit.
That's pretty clear. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I have one more. I
Sure.
hope this is not too much. During the application, it's also, there is another problem that I had. It is about your non-existent work history. Because I was trying to get into and it didn't allow me to continue. And I thought that my work history, it is basically my name. That is how I do my work. That's how I'm doing as a freelance artist. But when I put it my name, it basically doesn't recognize that I am.
Right. So what they're looking for there is to find out what jobs you've had before now.
No, I never had any other jobs since I
Right.
came to USA.
Right.
Basically, I am an artist since then. So I never had any other jobs. So
you're not going to have a work history.
Yes.
Yep. So it's gonna be non-existent. Plugging your name in isn't gonna register anything.
Yes.
So I would probably leave that one blank or say non-existent. And I'll tell you too, with regard to this, you have the application up in front of you. You have seen more of the application than I have, because they don't have these templates available online. You actually have to go through the system in order to see the questions that they are asking, which is less than helpful. So I'm not familiar with the specific page that you're talking about, but I have heard from other folks that they do ask about prior work history. You're not going to have one, and that should be okay. That shouldn't be a disqualifier for you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
And also,
yes.
And also, when I was trying to search, it came to the website in Spanish. Does it mean a disadvantage if I'm applying in Spanish?
I don't think so. It's just a translation they make available.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, yep.
Thank you, Art. Art, Dave Van Amberg here. Can you hear me?
I can, Dave, thanks.
Okay. I am about to go online today and complete the application. Would it be of any advantage to you or others for me to take screenshots of all the screens that are presented to me?
David, if you could take screenshots and send those to Patrick, that would be absolutely fantastic.
I'll be happy to.
Okay. All right, folks, anybody else? Looks like we got it in just over an hour, which is good. And I hope that this was useful to at least some of you. Again, my contact information is there. You can feel free. And you know what? The one thing that's not on there is my email address. So let me tell you what that is real quickly. It is first initial, last name at quinnfirm.com. So AMARTINUCCI at QUINNFIRM.com. The office number is there. My calls are being forwarded to my cell phone. So if you dial 833-2222, and when you get to the voicemail system, enter extension 1036, it will ring through to me. I'll probably just answer with a good afternoon or a good morning. This is Art, because I have no way of checking caller ID as those calls come through. I hope everybody's staying safe and healthy, and I hope that we can all get back to work here in a safe and reasonable fashion, and hopefully very soon. And with that, I'm going to close out the meeting. Okay, everybody take care.